The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Darkness descends, a blanket covering the world. Even today in our modern world, illuminated by artificial light, the darkness holds a certain power. Yet despite our attempts to banish the dark, it remains a constant companion, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the limits of our own perception. The darkness whispers to something deep within our primal brain, a place where shadows dance and ancient instincts linger. Why do we fear the dark? It's a question that has haunted humanity for millennia. Is it an evolutionary hangover from a time when the night held very real dangers? Is it a product of our own imaginations, fueled by centuries of folklore and scary stories? From the youngest child cowering under the covers to the bravest explorer venturing into uncharted territory, we all share a primal instinct to be wary of what we cannot see. This fear can manifest in subtle ways. A quickened heartbeat when the lights go out, a reluctance to be alone in the dark, an overactive imagination that conjures up unseen threats. But regardless of its intensity, the fear of the dark speaks to something fundamental about the human condition, our vulnerability, our need for security, and our endless fascination with the mysteries that lie just beyond our grasp. To understand our deep-seated fear of the dark, we must journey back millions of years, long before the advent of civilization, to the cradle of humanity, the African savanna. Here, our early ancestors lived in a world vastly different from our own, a world where the setting sun brought not just darkness, but also a surge in danger. The night transformed the familiar landscape into a treacherous labyrinth, where every rustle of leaves, every snapped twig, could signal a life-or-death encounter. The predators, those who ruled the night, awoke, their senses sharpened, their hunger driving them to hunt. Lions, leopards, hyenas, these were not mere animals to our ancestors, but harbingers of death, their presence a constant threat to survival. The darkness itself was not the enemy, not directly. It was the cloak it provided, the veil that obscured the dangers lurking within. Our ancestors, lacking the sharp night vision of many of their predators, were at a distinct disadvantage. In this unforgiving environment, fear was not a weakness, but an essential survival tool. Those who were naturally more cautious, those who felt a surge of adrenaline at the slightest sound or shadow, were more likely to survive. This fear, this heightened awareness, was not a conscious choice, but a deeply ingrained instinct, hardwired into their very being through countless generations of natural selection. The individuals who possessed this instinct were more likely to live long enough to pass on their genes, ensuring that future generations inherited this same predisposition towards caution in the dark. It was a fear that kept our ancestors alive, a fear that allowed our species to thrive in a world fraught with danger. But the fear of the dark was not solely shaped by the threat of becoming prey. For our ancestors, the darkness provided an opportunity, a chance to turn the tables on their prey. Many animals, particularly herbivores, were most vulnerable at night. Their senses dulled, their movements sluggish. The darkness became a hunting ground, a place where skilled hunters could utilize their knowledge of the terrain and their understanding of animal behavior to their advantage. This duality, this interplay of fear and opportunity, is woven into our DNA, a legacy passed down from our ancestors who lived and died under the cloak of night. The fear of the dark, woven into our very being from millennia on the savannah, is not merely a figment of our imagination. It is a physiological response, a cascade of neural activity orchestrated by the most primal parts of our brain. At the heart of this response lies the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure nestled deep within the brain's limbic system, the seat of our emotions, memories, and survival instincts. The amygdala acts as our personal security guard, constantly scanning our environment for potential threats. In the light of day, when our vision is clear and our surroundings are familiar, the amygdala hums along quietly in the background, its alarm system on low alert. Imagine walking down a dark street at night. Every rustle of leaves, every distant car alarm, every flicker of movement in your peripheral vision sends a jolt of adrenaline through your system. Your heart races, your breath quickens, and your muscles tense, preparing for a fight or flight response. In the absence of clear visual information, the brain tends to err on the side of caution, assuming the worst-case scenario. This tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in random or vague stimuli is known as pareidolia, and it is a powerful driver of fear in the dark. As if the amygdala's heightened activity and our brain's tendency to see threats in the shadows weren't enough, our own internal chemistry conspires against us in the dark. As the sun sets and darkness descends, our bodies begin to produce melatonin, a hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. Melatonin is essential for a good night's sleep, but it also has a curious side effect. It lowers our alertness and cognitive function, making us more susceptible to fear and anxiety. In the presence of melatonin, our rational mind, the part of our brain that can reason through our fears and anxieties, becomes less effective, allowing the amygdala and its primal instincts to take control. This heightened state of vulnerability is particularly pronounced in children, whose brains are still developing and whose understanding of the world is still forming. The human mind, for all its complexities and wonders, abhors a vacuum, especially when it comes to information. We are wired to seek patterns, to connect the dots, to make sense of the world around us. In the bright light of day, this innate drive serves us well, allowing us to navigate our environment, learn from our experiences, and build a coherent narrative of our lives. But in the darkness, this same drive, this need for understanding, can become our undoing. When our senses are deprived of their usual input, our minds go into overdrive, attempting to fill in the blanks, to create order out of chaos. We humans have a deep-seated need for control, for predictability, for a sense of order in our lives. Darkness, by its very nature, disrupts this sense of control, stripping away our familiar visual cues, throwing our internal compass into disarray. In the darkness, we are no longer masters of our domain, but rather disoriented explorers, navigating an unfamiliar landscape. We lose our bearings, both literally and figuratively, and this loss of control can be deeply unsettling. This is your body's natural response to a perceived loss of control, a surge of adrenaline preparing you to fight or flee from an unknown danger. The fear of the dark, then, is not simply a fear of the absence of light, but a fear of what that absence represents, a loss of control, a surrender to the unknown, a confrontation with our own vulnerability. And like all fears, the more we feed it, the stronger it becomes. Each time we experience anxiety or fear in the dark, each time our imaginations run wild, each time we avoid a dark room or reach for a nightlight, we reinforce the neural pathways associated with that fear. We create a feedback loop where the fear itself becomes the trigger for more fear. By gradually exposing ourselves to the thing we fear, we can begin to rewire our brains to break the feedback loop of fear and to replace our anxiety with a sense of calm and control. Throughout human history, darkness has been inextricably linked with the unknown, the mysterious and often the terrifying. Long before the advent of science and reason, our ancestors sought to explain the world around them through stories, myths, and legends. And in the absence of empirical evidence, what better canvas for these narratives than the darkness, a realm where imagination could run wild and where anything seemed possible? Across cultures and continents, darkness became the domain of the supernatural, the home of spirits, demons, and monsters. The darkness, in a sense, became a scapegoat, a repository for all that was feared and misunderstood. The association of darkness with the supernatural is not confined to any one culture or time period. It is a recurring motif in human storytelling across the globe. In ancient Greek mythology, Nyx, the primordial goddess of the night, was a figure of immense power, feared even by Zeus himself. She was the mother of other powerful and often unsettling deities, including Hypnos, asleep, Thanatos, the death, and the Moirai, the fates. In many Asian cultures, darkness is associated with the yin energy, a feminine force often linked with stillness, passivity, and the unknown. From the vampires of Eastern European folklore to the werewolves of medieval Europe, from the jinn of Arabian Nights to the boogeyman lurking in the closets of countless children's bedrooms, the association of darkness with the supernatural has persisted through the centuries, woven into the fabric of our collective unconscious. Lights, camera, fright, how pop culture fuels our fear of the dark. While the roots of our fear of the dark may lie in our evolutionary past and cultural conditioning, there's no denying that modern media plays a significant role in perpetuating and amplifying this fear, particularly in younger generations. From the earliest horror films to the latest video games, darkness is frequently used as a narrative device to create suspense, tension, and, of course, jump scares. Think about the classic horror movie tropes: the flickering light bulb, the creaking door, the shadowy figure lurking in the background. These tropes are effective precisely because they tap into our primal fear of the unknown, the sense of unease we feel when our vision is limited and our imaginations are free to run wild. Video games, with their immersive environments and interactive narratives, have taken this fear-mongering to a whole new level. Many horror games are set in dark, claustrophobic environments, forcing players to confront their fears head-on while navigating mazes, solving puzzles, and of course, battling terrifying creatures that lurk in the shadows. A legacy of fear passed down through generations. These media depictions of darkness, while often intended as entertainment, can have a profound impact on our subconscious minds, particularly in children and adolescents whose brains are still developing and who may have difficulty distinguishing between fantasy and reality. The jump scares, the gruesome imagery, the unsettling sound effects. These can all contribute to a heightened sense of anxiety and fear associated with darkness, even in the safety of our own homes. Moreover, the constant bombardment of these fear-inducing images and narratives can create a feedback loop, where even the slightest suggestion of darkness, a darkened hallway or a rustling curtain, can trigger a cascade of anxiety and fear. We become conditioned to associate darkness with danger, and this association can be difficult to break, even when we know, rationally, that there is nothing to fear. The emerging imagination, when shadows take shape. Childhood is a time of wonder, a period when the boundaries between reality and fantasy are fluid, and the world is a canvas onto which young minds project their boundless imaginations. It is a time of magic and monsters, of talking animals and imaginary friends, of dreams that bleed into waking life and fears that take on a life of their own. Around the age of 3, children begin to develop a theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have thoughts, beliefs, and feelings that are different from their own. This newfound understanding of the world, while crucial for social and emotional development, can also be a source of anxiety, particularly when it comes to the unknown. The darkness, with its lack of visual cues and its potential for obscuring familiar objects and spaces, becomes a breeding ground for these anxieties. A child's bedroom, so comforting and familiar during the day, can transform into a menacing landscape at night, populated by shadows that dance and shift. taking on the forms of lurking monsters, menacing creatures, or other figments of their active imaginations. Nurturing fear: how childhood experiences leave their mark. While the fear of the dark is a common and often transient phase in childhood, certain experiences can solidify this fear, transforming it from a fleeting anxiety into a deeply ingrained phobia that can persist into adulthood. These experiences often involve a sense of isolation, helplessness, or a perceived threat to the child's sense of security. Imagine, for instance, a child who is repeatedly left alone in the dark, either as a form of punishment or simply due to neglect. The absence of a comforting presence, the lack of reassurance from a caregiver, can amplify the child's sense of vulnerability, reinforcing the association of darkness with fear and loneliness. Similarly, exposure to frightening or traumatic events such as a burglary, a natural disaster, or even a particularly vivid nightmare can create a lasting association between darkness and danger in a child's mind. The darkness becomes a trigger, a reminder of the traumatic event, and the fear response becomes deeply ingrained in the child's psyche. The digital age paradox: strangers in the dark. Ironically, in this age of ubiquitous artificial light, when we have the power to banish darkness with the flick of a switch, the fear of the dark may be more pervasive than ever before. Our constant exposure to artificial light, particularly from screens, has disrupted our natural sleep-wake cycles, suppressed our melatonin production, and made us less accustomed to experiencing true darkness. Children in particular are growing up in a world saturated with artificial light, spending hours each day bathed in the blue light emitted from screens. This constant exposure to light has been linked to a range of sleep disturbances, mood disorders, and even an increased risk of certain types of cancer. But perhaps the most insidious effect of our light-polluted world is that it has made us strangers to darkness, unfamiliar with its rhythms and its nuances. When we do encounter darkness, whether it's during a power outage or simply walking through a dimly lit room, our senses are on high alert, our imaginations run wild, and our ancient fear of the unknown takes hold. Breaking the cycle of fear, embracing the darkness within. Overcoming the fear of the dark, whether it's a mild childhood anxiety or a debilitating adult phobia, requires a multifaceted approach that addresses both the physiological and psychological roots of this fear. It involves retraining our brains to associate darkness with safety and relaxation rather than danger and anxiety. One effective technique is gradual exposure therapy, which involves gradually increasing our exposure to darkness in controlled and safe environments. This could involve starting with simply sitting in a dimly lit room for a few minutes each day, gradually increasing the duration and decreasing the amount of light until we feel comfortable being in complete darkness. Another approach is to challenge the negative thought patterns and beliefs that fuel our fear of the dark. This might involve reframing our thoughts, replacing irrational fears with more realistic assessments of the situation, and practicing mindfulness techniques to calm our minds and bodies when anxiety arises. Ultimately, overcoming the fear of the dark is about more than just conquering a phobia. It's about embracing a fundamental part of the natural world, a part of ourselves that we have been conditioned to fear, but that holds within it a strange and compelling beauty. It's about learning to find peace and solace in the stillness of the night, to appreciate the vastness of the universe reflected in the night sky, and to rediscover the magic and wonder that captivated our imaginations as children. Beyond the shadows, finding courage in the embrace of night. The fear of the dark, woven into the fabric of our being from millennia spent navigating a world shrouded in shadow, is a testament to our capacity for both primal instinct and learned behavior. It is a fear that has protected us, haunted us, and shaped our cultures and beliefs for countless generations. But it is also a fear that we can overcome. not by banishing the darkness entirely, but by learning to coexist with it, to appreciate its nuances, and to find courage in the face of the unknown. The darkness, for all its perceived threats, also holds within it a certain allure, a sense of mystery and possibility that has captivated human imagination for as long as we have gazed up at the stars. It is in the darkness that we confront our deepest fears, test our limits, and discover hidden strengths we never knew we possessed. It is in the stillness of the night that our senses sharpen, our thoughts turn inward, and we connect with something ancient and profound within ourselves. Overcoming the fear of the dark is not about becoming fearless, but about developing a healthy respect for the power of the unknown. It is about recognizing that fear, in its purest form, is a survival mechanism, a signal from our bodies to proceed with caution, to be aware of our surroundings, to trust our instincts. It is when fear becomes irrational, consuming, and debilitating that it prevents us from experiencing the fullness of life, from embracing the unknown with a sense of curiosity and wonder. The next time you find yourself enveloped in darkness, take a moment to pause, to breathe deeply, to listen to the sounds of the night. Instead of shrinking back from the shadows, allow yourself to lean into them, to explore the textures and temperatures of the darkness, to feel the earth beneath your feet, and to acknowledge the vastness of the universe surrounding you. In that moment of surrender, you may just discover a newfound sense of peace, a realization that the darkness is not something to be feared, but rather a force to be respected, a canvas upon which to paint your own unique story of courage and resilience.